All right, well, welcome to Ready Tech. Let's get started with the JavaScript intro. So essentially, JavaScript is just an object-oriented scripting programming language to create an interactive and dynamic web pages to enhance user experience. You can have updates, live feed in real time, right? And it works alongside two other technologies called CSS, which stands for Cascading Style Sheets, and HTML, which stands for Hypertext Markup Language. JavaScript code typically runs within HTML script tags, right? Script tags, we have like here, right? These are tags right here: HTML, HTML body. So when you learn into HTML, you'll start understanding what that is, right? And also, when you want to learn HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, you should not only refer to online tutorials provided by W3 Tutorials or Java T Point, right? But also you should refer to textbooks and also documentation. Remember, for web technologies, documentation is the perfect place to refer, right? And it always has all the latest updated materials. All right, so you just type in JavaScript and just type in the developer.mozilla.org, right? And this gives you the documentation. So JavaScript is a lightweighted interpreted or just-in-time compiled JIT programming language with first-class functions. First-class functions indicating that functions, they can also be used as they can be assigned to variables, right? They can be assigned as arguments in functions, right? While it is most well known as the scripting language for web pages, many non-browser environments also use it, right? Such as Node.js, right? When you have your web application and you want to communicate on the server side, that's when Node.js is used. Apache CouchDB and Adobe Acrobat. JavaScript is a prototype-based, garbage-collected dynamic language supporting multiple paradigms such as imperative, functional, and object-oriented, right? So definitely give this website a visit, even if you need to look for any function, any method, right? You just type in the search bar here, and it'll give you the entire documentation required. Also, when you need to practice JavaScript code, typically a lot of people use IDEs, but when you're just starting out, I like to use browser-based online compilers. So I'll just type in online JS compiler, meaning JavaScript compiler. And you get a whole list of different options, right? You can get CodeChef, My Compiler, right? And yeah, eventually use IDEs and different tools and software. But when you're just learning out, it's always good to use online compilers like this. So this, if you want to do like your first program here, right? Let's just say hello world, right? Console.log, you just say function to print hello world, and here we get an output, hello world, right? It's very simple. It's browser based, right? Don't need to download anything. Don't just get right into it. Saves a lot of time, especially in the beginning, right? So some of the key features of JavaScript, right? It's a dynamic typing. JavaScript engine, it determines the data at runtime. Type coercion. So what do I mean by this? Dynamic typing. Well, let's say we have some variable a and we assign it 2, right? And let's say we have another variable b and we assign it as a string 2, right? And let's say we want to add a and b, right? So what would our output be? What do you guys think it would be? It could be 2, 2, it could be 4, but let's see what it does. Our output is 2, 2, all right? So now let's see what type this is, right? Oh, wrong. Just put that there. And we have another function called type of, right? A plus B. All right. So it's a string. So what happened? The variable A was coerced as a string, right? So it was 2, 2. So this is a string. It was coerced into a string. So that's what type coercion means. So it's dynamic typing. You're not assigning the data type, right, initially, but it presents itself it transitions to its respective data type during runtime. So that's what we mean by dynamic typing. All right, and don't get stressed out with all of these features. You can always refer to online tutorials and web documentation. This is just an intro. Just try to get a good gist of what's happening. And another feature of JavaScript is its functional style, right? Like other programmings, it works with functions, right? Functions, they're reusable pieces of code. They're like blocks of code, right? So let me just give you an example of what a function would be, all right? So let's say we have some function. We'll do an add function, right? We'll do function add, right? We'll have, and we have to give some arguments, right? So we'll give some x and y, all right? So what we're going to do is we're going to return x plus y, right? So this is a function, and what a function means is you can reuse this add function almost everywhere, right? So let's say we did add 3 and 4, right? And let's print it to the screen. And this is essentially going to give us 7, right? And then we can reuse the function. We can do add 4 and 4. Reusability. Simple. JavaScript is really a simple language. It's really not that complicated. All right. The only thing with JavaScript is its syntax is quite unique in comparison to other languages, so you have to just be a little attentive, right? And it's platform independent, right? Why is JavaScript platform independent? Because as JavaScript is compiled, it's really an interpreted language, but when it's in a browser, it uses a combination of interpretation and just-in-time compilation, right? So what happens is you get bytecode, and with this bytecode, you can run it on different browsers, different hardware systems of that nature, right? That's why it is an interpreted language, and when on browsers, it also uses JIT compilation. This means just-in-time compilation. This is a note, and you should definitely dig deep into this. I will also create following videos regarding this, right? And typically, JavaScript is a single-threaded language, right? Single-threaded means it executes one thread, one task at a time, right? It does have parallel execution via async processing and web workers, all right? But primarily without async processing web workers, it's single-threaded. But with async processing, you can make it multi-threaded, right? And another good feature of JavaScript is it supports both front-end and back-end. What do we mean by front-end? Front-end essentially when a user or client, or you per se, is using the website, right? You're using YouTube, right? You're viewing this video, right? The back-end is how are we viewing the video? Where is the data stored, right? Where is it hosted, right? It's coming from a server somewhere. That's back-end, right? And with JavaScript, two popular technologies used for front-end are React and Next. They go hand in hand. React comes first, and then when you understand React, you want to move on to Next, right? And the backend, same thing with backend. We have Node.js, and once you master Node.js, you want to learn something called Next, another technology, right? Also, when you apply for jobs, they might not specifically ask for like Next or even um, Express. Oh wait, my bad. Backend is you have Node.js, and then after Node.js you want to learn Express, right? Express.js, and they go hand in hand. Like it's when you're a web developer, and you automatically have to know these following technologies: JavaScript, CSS, HTML, React, and Next, Node.js, and Express. Now those are 6 technologies that I've just mentioned. You need to know those, right? And that'll make you a well-rounded developer. That'll essentially make you a full-stack developer, right? And once you build on top of that, you are limitless, right? Let's go over more features, all right? JavaScript is event-driven, right? It's lightweight. Lightweight meaning in terms of like resource computation, right? Consumption. when your JavaScript code will run on the hardware itself, on the user or the client hardware itself. It won't run on the server, right? Because you have to understand, if it runs on the server, that means data has to transmit back and forth from a server. A server might be somewhere in another state, maybe 1,000 miles away, and you're in one location, right? There's going to be a latency for that data to transmit back to that area and back to your screen, right? So instead of doing that, it processes the code on your system itself, and it's lightweight, right? Because it doesn't use that much resource consumption, right? In JavaScript is a case-sensitive language. So what do we mean by case-sensitive language? Essentially, case-sensitive language is when we have a variable a is equal to test, right? And we have capital A is equal to test2, right? And when you print these two, you can see it's not the same. They're actually different, right? They mean different things. One is test and one is test. So this is case sensitive. A is not the same thing as capital F. There is a distinction, right? That's what case sensitive means. All right. And functions and objects, they can be used as first class citizens, right? First class citizens, as in functions and objects, they can be assigned to variables. So what do we mean by variables? We have a variable here. We can take a function and we can assign it to A, right? We can take an object and we can also assign it to this variable, right? So that's what we mean by first class citizens, all right? And async await processing other events, they can occur without blocking the main thread, right? This is what makes your JavaScript multi-threaded, right? You can have real-time updates, right? As you're using the browser, right? And it's a prototype-based language, right? You inherit properties and methods directly from other objects. It has inbuilt and time handling capability, right? So what do we mean by inbuilt time handling capability is you can have time functions on timers, right? They can happen on the device itself. You don't need to have it running through another process or even on the server. It'll have it on the machine itself that the user is using. All right, and key features of JavaScript is when you use JavaScript, right, it'll automatically detect the browser and the operating system, right? So you can customize your website according to different browsers. Meaning, one person will have a Mac, so they'll have Safari as their web browser. Another individual will have a Windows computer and they'll have Google Chrome as their browser, right? And another key features of JavaScript is arrow functions. Well, arrow functions, they provide quick implementations of functions, right? Typically, you would need to use the function keyword and whatnot, but with arrow functions, it's quick syntax, right? This will also be going over in another video, but this is also a unique aspect for JavaScript. And though fundamentally different, Java and JavaScript are similar in syntax, right? Most importantly, JavaScript is an object-oriented programming also, right? And JavaScript is a good language to learn for web development, right? In my personal opinion, better than Python because it has a lot of support. It has been here for a while, right? So let me just give you a quick overview of JavaScript. I like this video. It presents it very good.
JavaScript, a high-level single-threaded, garbage-collected, interpreted, or just-in-time compiled, prototype-based, multi-paradigm dynamic language with a non-blocking event loop, made famous for building websites. It was created in 1995 in just 1 week by Brendan Eich with the goal of adding an easy-to-learn scripting language to the Netscape browser. It was originally named Mocha, but the genius marketing people at the time wanted it to sound like that sexy new Java language. Today, it's a fully featured language that continues to evolve through the ECMAScript standard. It's most well known for building front-end web applications because it's the only language other than WebAssembly that is natively supported in browsers.
All right. Yes, and that's another good point. JavaScript is supported in all browsers, but not all functionalities of JavaScript will be supported in all browsers, right? Like some methods will not be used in some browsers. They might not be as efficient, right? So that's something to watch out for. And when you go over this documentation, it'll give you like a good understanding. For example, I want to look up the for each function. All right, we have array.prototype for each. So you can see that it works for Chrome, Edge, Mozilla Firefox, and Safari. When I scroll down, it'll give me a clear check. Okay, it works on all browsers, right? That means it works on all browsers, right? So why would you do this? Well, when a business or yourself is creating a website, you want to make sure that it works across. Like you have phone browsers, right? You have a mobile browser, you have a computer browser, and a lot of people use Chrome and Edge, right? But they also use Firefox, Opera, and these all have different constructs, and you want to make sure your website is compatible and able to work on this, right? So your website will be available to a lot of different consumers or clients and users, right? And where can you run JavaScript code? Well, JavaScript code is run on browsers, right? And when you use browsers, you typically want to embed it within HTML language, right? So you can use even like the common notepad, right, to run your browser, right? And or online compilers or IDE. This is just for practice on IDE. MS Visual Studio Code is another popular IDE to use. So yeah, you guys should download that too. MS VS Code. And JavaScript uses both the interpretation, like I said before, and JIT, just-in-time compilation, right? Essentially, bytecode is executed on a JavaScript virtual machine. When your code is processed, it creates bytecode, and each browser will have something called a virtual machine, which will process that bytecode, right? And bytecode is essentially an abstraction of machine code. It can run on different browsers and different machines with different hardware. Basically, you can write once and run anywhere. So with bytecode, the phrase to remember is you can write it once and make it run anywhere. That's what makes JavaScript code platform independent. And what is the ECMA script, right? So the ECMA script is a scripting language specification used for several scripting languages, right? And the ECMA script was designed to ensure the operability of web pages across different types of browsers, right? And this right here, the developer.mozilla, this will provide you with the appropriate ECMA script, right? And you guys can do some research and look into that. But don't forget this website right here. I'll put it down in the below so you guys can reference that. Also put a link to this online compiler, right? Very handy. And nope, JS is called a silent side scripting language because JavaScript code runs directly on the client's hardware rather than on the server, allowing real-time dynamic content, right? And what do we mean by dynamic? Variables are determined at runtime, right? Remember the example I gave before, right? You give A equals 2 and B equals, with the single quotes of 2, and then when you do console.log A plus B, at runtime is doing type conversion. At runtime, you're determining the data type. We're not directly typing it in, right? Let me just go over that again. Like right here, we have, let's say we do 2, and here we're doing 2. Normally, you would do like integer A or int A in other languages, right? Or you would do string A is equal to string. But no, during compile time, it's realizing, okay, one is a number and one is a string. Therefore, when you do a number and a string, you add a number and a string, you're going to get, and here we get type of to get the data type, right? And then you run it, and you can see, right, it's 2, 2, and it's a number, right? So that's how it's working, right? Wait, hold on. This is an error, A or A, right? You're going to get a, not a number, you're going to get a string, right? It's going to be type coarse to a string, right? All right. And to print on a window or a screen, we can use console.log right here, right? Console.log. The window would just mean like the whole window object, right? But we're using online IDE, right? I mean online compiler per se. Alert document.write. I think it was like an olden day. It's not really used. I haven't really used this much, but mostly just pay attention to console.log and alert, right? And JavaScript code, it can be placed in 3 different areas. You can place it in the body tag of an HTML and head tag of an HTML. So what is HTML? HTML is a hypertext markup language, right? And so let's take an example of an HTML code here, right? So this is like, these are tags, right? And you can place your HTML code in between these tags right here, like the body, right? The head tag. You can place the code over there. So that's what that is saying, right? And you can also put it as an external JS file, right? You can have a different, just an extension like file name.js. So that's where you can place your JavaScript code. And this is another important. JavaScript literals are of 2 types, right? You have fixed values known as literals, and you can be written with or without decimals. JavaScript strings can be written in single or double quotes, right? So when we have a string, you can write it as like b equals, you can do test, or you can also do b equals test, single or double quotes, right? And oh yeah, just make it a good habit to end every statement or line when using JavaScript with the semicolon. Even when you use code blocks for functions, right? End it with a semicolon. It's better, right? Some browsers won't give an error, others won't, but it's always a good habit to end it with a semicolon, right? And your literals, they can be of written or without decimals, and they can be in single or double quotes, right? So variables, values, they're called variables. A variable is a name storage location that holds a value, right? So what would a variable be? Like A here is a variable, B is a variable, right? A is in here is a variable, right? And the value of can be a data type or even function of var. It can be declared with var, let, and const, right? Var is, it makes it global, right? Let and const are block scoped, right? Block scope global just means we didn't really put var, let, or const here, right? We could put var here, but even if you don't, it'll automatically be global. And what we mean by block scope is your code will be in a block, right? So this right here will identify as a block. Pretty simple, right? And again, two types of variables in JavaScript. You have local and global, right? Local is declared inside a block or function. Global is declared outside a function or within a window object, right? Let and const are local scope, block scope, right? And global would be var, right? And these are how you do comments in JavaScript, right? So if I was to do something like this, a comment, right? We're going to test a comment. If you want a multi-line comment, right? And you were just typing something, you want to go on to the next line, right? It would be shift 8 and then a forward slash, right? When you run it, this won't get executed, pretty basic right there. And yeah, all right. Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe. Till next time.